Welcome to Business Casual. I am Mihae Ahn, your host and author of The Stories We Tell and Perfectly Incomplete. Business Casual brings you unfiltered conversations with badass, inspiring, highly accomplished women. I am passionate about and believe in the power of sharing stories, our authentic, raw, incomplete stories, getting beyond the polished LinkedIn profiles to the real humans behind the titles. My guest today is Aastha. Aastha is a COO of Advica, a virtual healthcare company, where she has been for nearly a decade after starting as a summer student. She is passionate about mental health, particularly the connection between physical and mental well-being for women. What I admire most about Aastha, among many, is her ability to rewrite limiting narratives about herself while maintaining genuine curiosity about human behavior and health. Some key takeaways from our chat include creating and practicing healthy boundaries is important to find our identity and protect our priorities. Our time has value. We want to acknowledge and calculate it. Preventative mental health care works. Regular therapy as maintenance, not just crisis intervention. I very much enjoyed our conversation and hope you enjoy it as well. Hi, Asta. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Mihae. Happy Friday.
Yes, happy Friday. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. You
No
are
other way I would have it, and I'm very honored that I'm one of your many guests. I'm sure that will be coming up for many seasons, hopefully. And I really like the name. I will say that business casual, very very cool. And of course, I wouldn't expect anything else from you other than cool marketing. But I really wanted to make sure I commented on that too.
Thank you. You are one of the first that I thought about. And I believe the first email that I sent out, I was drafting email invitations for our guests, obviously sending emails to
Right.
invite them. And I believe the very first email that went out is to your inbox.
Oh,
So
thank you. I'm very honored. And yeah, I think it's a different format for you, having written two books before with your story. So now I guess you're expanding the pool and you're like, let me bring in more stories. I love that.
yes, yes, there are so many just badass women in my life, and they all have amazing stories, inspiring stories that I would love to highlight and share.
That's
So
awesome.
here we are.
And I love that you use badass in a positive connotation than negative. I was in two minds. I actually have a black t-shirt that says passionate badass. And I was in two minds. I was like, should I wear this or should I wear that to the podcast? But then I wasn't sure if we were doing video anyway, so I was like, you know what, I'll go with the safer option. But you've got me inspired for next time. I will probably rock that t-shirt.
Yes, yes, please.
Oh.
So, Asta, we know each other really well, but for our audience, please have a quick intro of yourself.
Wow, yeah. You know what? As a child that wasn't born in Canada and then has lived in the Middle East, those intros are very hard to keep short because there's so many versions of my life that I almost have to touch upon. But to keep things brief for folks that, don't know me as well as obviously Mihai does, I was born in Delhi, India, to my parents who are no longer together. And we moved to Kuwait when I was about 6 years old. So, really, just having done junior kindergarten and kindergarten in India, and then just making a move to a country where Arabic was the first language. And I was in another Indian school, and really good memories in Kuwait as well. I was age 6 to about 18 when I left. And that time was special to me because my mom was working in healthcare and she would just, drag me along to her shifts at the hospital, which, I mean, you don't hear of that now, but it was totally a thing back then because there was no one else to take care of me at home. And I would find myself in these like rooms where like there would be surgeons talking or nurses kind of, sharing stories about patients. And I just got used to being in the hospital world, and that universe became kind of familiar to me. So I would go home and I would hang out with my friends and I would share these big words that I would learn, and they would be like, what are you talking about? You're like an 80-year-old, but you don't sound like an 80-year-old. So that's what I remember most about Kuwait. And coming to Canada as an 18-year-old university student, I mean, doing my undergrad at U of T Mississauga, really great memories. I still, think very fondly of my time at U of T. They've been just an amazing university for the experiences that I was looking for. And then, fast forward to like my working life, started at Advica almost a decade ago, believe it or not. Was a summer student here, started, with data entry. They were looking for some extra help. And then just never left. And, learned on the job. I don't have an official master's degree or any degree in business. So I, half jokingly say that Advica's been my MBA on the job. And I continue to learn every day, and I just try to make sure I surround myself with people that are way smarter than I am, so that I can continue to imbibe and, through the process of osmosis, learn a little bit of what they know.
So, healthcare has been just part of your life since you were really, really young.
Totally, yeah. You know what? And it's funny because when my mom used to ask me, she's like, "What are you gonna do when you grow up?" And I used to be like, you know what? I'll do anything but healthcare. Like, I don't want to do healthcare because it felt like I grew up in healthcare, and it was just like, okay, I've had enough of that. And here I am. Like, healthcare found me, I guess. And the format's a little bit different, I will say. Like, Advica is a virtual health company, and we don't have physical locations like hospitals and clinics. So I guess I'm, still kind of standing my ground, and I'm not back in the hospital at least. But I'm sure my South Asian mom would have loved to have me as a doctor or some version of that. So we'll keep that for another time.
It's funny that my dad has been in technology IT sector his whole career.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
used to tell him, I'm not gonna go into IT.
Right.
He's been telling me, IT technology, it is going to continue to transform, and that industry will be exciting industry for
Right.
you and for anyone. And I told him, not a chance. And
Right.
guess where I
Here you
am?
are. Yeah. I feel like, there's something about us being rebel kids, right? Like we almost don't want to go with the norm, and then somehow, life and decisions kind of take us down their own path, right? And I guess what matters honestly is if we're excited about our everyday, right? And waking up to things that we love doing. I mean, for me, for the longest time, I wanted to make a difference. And for whatever reason, I thought, oh, in order to make a difference, I have to work for like places like the UN or a nonprofit organization. And it wasn't until I met someone who used to work at the UN, and he said, why do you think you can't make a difference in a private organization? Like, explain that narrative to me. And I had to almost rethink it. I'm like, you're right. Like I don't think, making a difference is confined to running a nonprofit or working at one. It can be in anything we do. I mean, it doesn't matter how we get there. It's about the intent and getting that fulfilled.
Very true. And I know you are very passionate about the work that you do.
Thank you.
Healthcare is quite broad, right? Um, Knowing you, I know you are quite passionate about mental health. Is there
Hmm.
anything that um, got you there, right? I'm sure
Yeah.
many things inspired you, but
Yeah, for starters, two things really got me into the world of mental health, and my curiosity was sparked by it. Number one was my dad was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was about 13 years old, and just watching him through that journey was challenging because it was like, what's going on, and, why does he need to be hospitalized? What does it mean to have this disease? And then on the social side, there was stigma, right? As nobody talked about it, and you weren't supposed to tell anybody in your school, or, when you went out to a party, that your dad has a mental health condition. So that became a big driver for me. I got very curious about the human mind, how our mind and behaviors are connected, and also just mental illness in general and the impact it can have on people, and not just them as the individual who's been dealing with this, but their families and their communities, and just the broader sort of ripple effect that it creates. And the second, funnily enough, was a slight failure, if you can call it that. I did not pass my calculus exam in my first year of undergrad. And I can't even tell you, like, my mom was just like, she was so unhappy with the fact that I could not clear my calc exam. But automatically, what that meant was I had to make up that credit with another course. And so the only course that was available in the summertime was Psych 101. And you know what? I was like, let me give it a shot. I mean, I've always been interested in human behavior, and who knows where it's going to take me. And it was that first course at U of T Mississauga that led me down a path of a series of courses and degrees in psychology and developmental psych, to be specific, and just learning about children and how they develop, and then quantifying it from like the educational element. So I would say those two pieces were like the core of why I'm interested in mental health.
Life can be so funny that way,
Yeah.
eh?
You
Yeah.
just never know. You never know where it's gonna take you, right? And I guess you have to just be open-minded in a little sort of sense, right? It has to be that if the path is not exactly the path that you thought you were gonna go on, can you adapt to it, and can you still show up with curiosity and passion and commitment, and then you just let things flow, right?
Yes. It used to be very much black and white, growing up,
Mm.
this or that, and failure meant just failure, period. Oh my gosh. What now?
The world came crashing down, 100%. I remember I didn't share the results of that test with my mom for 1 month. I just kept it hidden. And then U of T Mississauga sent a letter home saying, you have to make up for your credit. And I was like, oh my God. So yeah, for sure, it's failure. Failure seemed very deterministic. And it also seemed very connected to this level of guilt, right? Like I messed up, like I screwed up. How could I? And maybe I would have worked harder and it wouldn't have happened. And then it just starts on a loop, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Mental health, I've learned a lot from you, and um, the LinkedIn post that you post, Asta, I pay attention to them because they are very educational, and this is very different field from the field that I have been in. So I'm learning a lot.
Thank you.
Um, when was it? Few dinners ago, we talked about mental health and women, because there's
Hmm.
something there, right? The gender and mental health. Could you please elaborate on that point?
Yeah, I mean, I'm by no means an expert. I'm also a learner like yourself. But what I'm uncovering through my sort of deeper dives into women's health and mental health, I didn't realize how correlated they are, especially for women that would be, let's say, in my stage of life. Like, I'm 36 years old, probably either already in perimenopause or getting there very fast. I didn't realize how our hormonal shifts actually played a part in our mental health and well-being as women that are potentially either in perimenopause or almost approaching it. So I'm learning a lot there in the sense of the connection between our mind and just how our brain functions and our physical body. And, that sounds very obvious, right? But I feel like for the longest time, we have almost thought that our brain is like its own thing, and then all the physical ailments are like things that we fix with our like family doctor. And then, for all things mental health related, like stress or anxiety, we go to our therapist, and it's not connected for whatever reason. So I'd say that's one thing that it's become very clear to me, that your physical and your mental health are very well connected and very intertwined. And the other thing that's becoming very apparent as well is the mind and gut connection. And I feel like for women it might be a little bit more pronounced because we feel with all our heart. And I mean, not to say that guys don't, but I feel like the more women I connect with, they'll tell me that. Like, they'll be like, oh, my intuition or my gut is telling me that this is not what I am looking for, or this is not the right thing for me. And just realizing how much of that gut brain axis is actually connected. And I mean, the amount of studies that are coming out on it to say, if we can do little things for our gut health and how that will impact our mental health is just like amazing. Like, you don't even realize, things like prebiotics, probiotics, eating healthy, exercising, all of that. And then obviously sleep is a big one for women. How that can, really shape how we feel in our day-to-day lives. And the final thing I'll say on this is there's still a lot of women in my life that I find they're struggling with paying attention to their own sort of well-being. And, I mean, I'm sure people have heard this multiple times, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. But it's becoming quite apparent for me in my personal journey. Like, there are times when, I want to do more, but my body's telling me, I gotta stop, I gotta pause. And I'm starting to listen to that now more than anything else. And I think that's been a good connection too that I've been able to make for myself. And I hope other people can make that too for themselves.
The connection between gut and brain and everything. There are phrases like butterflies in stomach.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and gut-wrenching feeling, or there are multiple phrases like that exist. There's a
Yeah.
reason for that, right?
100%. Yeah. And I think it's also different cultures explain it differently as well, right? So if I look at like the Indian culture where I'm born, and I, am proud to say that I still identify with that culture, a lot of times it's explained as like a knot in your
Yes.
gut. If you're not feeling something with like your full wholehearted self, then there's a knot in your stomach, and you feel that, right? And a lot of times, if we pay attention to that stuff, I'm sure it would help us down our own mental health journey, right? With less stress and less anxiety around whatever that decision is.
Thank you once again.
Oh, you're most welcome. I'm so glad that that's a practice that's a part of who you are now.
Exactly. It I have been hesitating with the whole gratitude journal thing. We talked about it last time we hung out for dinner. Just such what is the phrase that I'm looking for? Like everywhere, it almost overused.
Overused.
Everybody
Yeah, you
uses
feel like, yeah.
that. So um, me being rebel, no,
Like, I'm not
no,
gonna do that. Yeah.
no.
Fair. Fair.
But
I was also very skeptical. I will say I started the 5 minute journal when I was just coming out of a really long relationship. And I don't remember how I came across it. I feel like social media had some role to play in it. Like, I must have seen it somewhere. And the founders of Intelligent Change, they used to post, I think it was Mimi and Alex, if I remember their names correctly. And they used to post about the journal that they've created and how it was life changing. And I picked it up at a chapters, and I was like, oh, like, this is just basic stuff. Like, I can't imagine how it can be life changing. So, like how you're saying, like the rebel in me, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot, and then I'm going to prove it wrong because it's not going to be life changing. Like, watch, I'm going to be the same person. But it was just amazing how the act of sitting down in the morning and opening up the journal and writing, some thoughts down, and then the same thing again, repeating that at the end of the day became a habit. And then it changed the way I looked at little things in my life. Like it became so much of, just a part of who I was, that then at one point, after I think a year and a half, I didn't need the journal anymore. Like I could just do the practice in my mind.
I see.
And I know for folks might be curious, like there's an app that you can also download. Like if you don't want the physical, act of writing things down, you can just, digitally
The thing called?
download the app. It's called a 5 minute journal.
Oh, the same,
Yeah.
same. Okay.
Same name, yeah. And that app is it's free. And I believe at one point even like 5 minute journal was featured on Oprah too. And I mean, if you look at the research on gratitude and how it rewires our brain, it's just so powerful, right? Just shifting that perspective from, saying, hey, this is not working out for me, and why, and do I deserve better, etc., to, oh, I'm so thankful for what I have. And, if I went back and said to my 10-year-old self or 20-year-old self or even 30-year-old self that I would be here, how proud would they be of just watching my growth and my journey, right? So it's a very subtle shift, and it's not drastic by any means, but I think it gets you there. And I really hope that you find that with your practice. And hopefully there's a positive sort of impact. But if not, then let me know too. Either ways, I want
Will
to
do,
know.
will do.
Yeah.
Few days ago, I was driving back home from dropped off Addie at school and
Yeah.
coming home, and there, you know, one of those drivers, right, on the road who are just not so nice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I thought to myself that it always is a trigger for me. Like
Mm,
driver who is driving like complete asshole, just trigger. But at that moment, you know what? I just dropped off my kid who is so happy, who woke up so happy as usual, and
oh,
who is so good at school. And I'm coming home to work at my home office that I adore. It's so comfortable space for me. I love
right.
my work, and my loving husband is at home as well. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
just right.
And you don't let that one incident or one situation like ruin your day, right? And I think that's powerful too, because what I'm slowly learning is there's not much in our sphere of control or influence, right? But what is within that is something we control. And then it's, the stories we tell ourselves in our heads. And if we can shift that narrative a little bit, I think the impact is just so profound that you don't want to miss out on it, right?
Are there any other stories that you actively rewrote?
Yeah. I think one that used to be a big part of my identity would be, my friends would know me as the person who knows exactly where to get a deal. Like I was that person, right? Like I would be the person that would find the best deal. And that could be anything. It could be like I'm buying a new laptop to like, oh, where are you gonna get the best like socks? Like it didn't matter like what the product was. And that, slowly like I started thinking, oh, like, I'm cheap. Like I'm not, because I'm looking for deals, and I'm cheap, and I'm always frugal and whatever you want to call it, right? And I think in the last about 3 or 4 years, I've shifted that narrative around to say I'm very careful with my money. I'm mindful about how I spend it and where I spend it. And that being said, I'm pushing myself to spend it more on things that bring me joy. Right? So if that means that, it's a fancy place, and we want to go for like a nice dinner, like my husband and I, then I'm not going to think about that twice, because that's cool. But at the same time, like the very next morning, I could be looking for the best deal on like a new TV that we needed, right? Like the fact that both of those Aastas can exist was interesting to me, because I was like, oh, I'm always going to be like, someone who wants a deal or cheap things. And I realized that I actually do like expensive things too. It's just a matter of like what's priority, right? Like, and if a nice vacation is a priority, then for sure I'll save up for that and not, go out for dinner like 5 times a week so that we can go to that vacation. And that's something I think I've learned to coexist, is how I'll put it.
Yes, back to the black and white thing, right? In
Yeah.
life, rarely things are black and white. Things can coexist. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And I think also part of it is like how you are seen by other people, right? Like I think when I was growing up, a big part of my identity was, how do my friends define me? Like what do they say about me?
Yeah.
And now I think I'm shifting that a little bit, and maybe it's just age and learnings from life, that now I'm like, okay, I get to define who I am and how I show up and what drives me. And of course, I care about my friends. I mean, I have some of the best friends that I'm very grateful for. But sometimes it's okay if they think about me differently, and I'm gonna accept that too, because it's not who I am, and that's fine, right? And I find that with like young people in my life, like my nieces, for example, where I see the same narrative playing out, right? It's like, oh, my friend told me that I am this, right? And you take it to heart, and I'm like, oh my
Yes,
gosh, like. So it's
totally.
interesting how it plays out.
I did something similar with the money and savings and finding deals and stuff. How I rewrote a little bit of that narrative in my head was, how much time am I spending to find the best ever deal,
Mm,
and how much my time
is worth.
worth.
Mm,
Yeah. So at some point, not going more to find even better deal is
yeah,
better deal at the end
for
because I'm
sure.
saving time.
No, for sure. And I love that you said that, right? Like our time has value and worth. And for whatever reason, I feel like as women, because of all the invisible labor that we get pulled into, I don't think we put a good value on our own time. And that's something I'm learning as well. I'll say this, like my husband puts a much greater value on his time. Like, and it's like, oh, we can, like simple things, like we can get, the house cleaned by somebody else. And then in the 3 hours, spend it however we want to spend it. And you can generate maybe more income in those 3 hours. But somewhere that story is, oh, but if you're not the one cleaning your house, like, and you're not upkeeping it, then you're probably not a good person. Like,
Yeah, and
and
guilt and yeah.
right. And then I had to break that for myself, because I understood his logic, and I was like, let's try it, and felt great. Like someone else comes and cleans your house and does your folding of laundry. I mean, amen to that. But it had to be me. It had to be me saying, you know what, that's okay. Like, it's okay if I'm taking those 3 hours and going for a walk with my husband and my dog, because that's for me. And spending that time again to the point of, cracking a deal, or, what value does your time and commitment have? It's okay if you can do that once in a while. And by any means, I'm not saying everybody should. Like, if you love cleaning your home, please do. I know I do. I find it therapeutic some days. But
Same.
then there's some weeks that I just can't. Like work is so intense that I'm like, okay, well, cleaners have to come in and just help us, and that's okay too. Like there's no shame in that.
There are people who have good influence on us and not so good influence on us. If
Mm.
we stick to positive, who would be, I'm sure there are many, the one that influenced you the most so far?
Yeah, that one's a tough one for me, right? Because I don't have one person or one figure in my world where I'm like, oh, I look up to them, and what they say and do is something I want to maybe follow the same path. But what I can say about influence in my life is I've learned that not all advice or influence is created equal. And sometimes you have to know who to ask for advice from and who do you allow to influence your life as well, right? And that was a lesson learned the hard way, because I am a very social person, so and I'm also very open, so it came very naturally to me to talk about my issues in public and share it with multiple people, only to realize like people love giving advice, but not all of it is applicable to you. So I think from that perspective, it's more of a, not a person or a name, but like more of a lesson is, let me be selective in who I take advice from. And if there are people that have walked a mile in my shoes and they know exactly where I'm coming from, great. I want to hear them out. But if there are folks that have absolutely no idea and they just want to say something for the sake of it, then maybe not. Like, I'll still be very like respectful, but I will probably not take their advice to heart.
Yes. So I believe in sharing stories for that reason. Like I'm always happy to and open to hear other people's stories and their experiences, not quote unquote advice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's a learning in itself too, right? Like I know with my I have three girlfriends that were really tight and we've known each other for like 18 years now. And we've started asking ourselves this question when we start like going on a rant and we start sharing a story. We're like, do you want advice? Or are you just looking to share? And that's okay, right? Like either ways, we're here for you. Like we're
I
gonna
love
hear
that
you out.
question. Whenever people say that,
Right.
yeah,
It's like what's the purpose, right? Because not all sharing is meant for seeking advice. And that's okay, especially in our closer relationships. But it's an important reminder even for ourselves that let's catch ourselves when we're sharing is what's the intent. Like we obviously want to offload, sometimes it's just venting and sometimes it's more meaningful than that because it's something that's hurt us or it's impacted us, or maybe something we're excited about, like we're really passionate about something and we want to tell everybody in the world. But what's the intent, right? And if the intent is not to seek advice and only to share, then that's cool. Then we all just listen and we don't offer any advice.
you are one of the people that I know who have built and maintained healthy boundaries in life. How did you get there? Healthy boundaries.
Yeah, that's been a struggle. I will accept. A lot of it was during therapy, where I had access to the right mental health expert guiding me, creating, a toolkit for me to lean into when I was finding myself with unhealthy boundaries. And I mean, as much as I love my mom, she's been an amazing force of, power and inspiration for me. Our relationship has been very interesting. So a lot of the therapy work that I did around boundary creation was coming from that, right? Is how do you create a space for yourself without letting a parent kind of guide you into various different directions that they think are good for you. So I would say, yeah, therapy for sure helped with boundary creation, and the practice of it. I mean, I still struggle with it, to be very honest. It's not easy to say no, because that feels like a burden like it feels like you're letting somebody else down. But the perspective shift for me is, if I say yes, what impact is it going to have on me and the work that I'm supposed to be prioritizing? And sometimes just even asking that question, it's so obvious that, you know what, I don't need to go to that event. Or, you know what, like it's fine if I really just need to lay in bed and read this weekend because my body's telling me I need to recover and rest versus go out and, sit on a patio and hang out with friends, right? So I think that has helped. And I mean, for anyone that, still wants to explore therapy for themselves, I'm a big proponent of it. I don't think people should only go to therapy when things are not looking great. I think the way, we hopefully are approaching our health and well-being is preventative and proactive. I hope people can do the same with therapy. For me, my cadence is, every couple of months speaking to my therapist, even if there is no crisis. Like, even if, there isn't a big nugget to solve through, messy sort of issue to solve through, I make sure that I speak to my therapist just as an upkeep, right? No different than you going to your family doctor for your blood work every couple of months.
The true health care, right? Not sick care, because so much of our system and infrastructure and belief and everything is around when you get sick, you go find help,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
let's do something before we get sick,
Right.
so we don't get sick.
Totally. And I think for that, I feel like the Canadian consumer now is getting smarter. And I think there's two reasons why. One is we have information available easily, right? Like, I mean, you're part of the AI world. I mean, you know this better than anybody else, that now it's literally, accessible anywhere, anytime, and to a great amount of accuracy too, because I know originally we didn't have too much of accuracy with AI, but it's getting better literally by the minute. And the second thing is, I think people have realized that for whatever reason, we kept our physicians, our family doctors on a pedestal as if they were superhumans, like as if, they had some magical powers
That is so true.
to know more than we do about our own bodies. Like, I don't even understand why that was a thing. And now I feel like people are like, no, if I don't feel right, I'm actually going to go back and talk to my doctor about that. Or if I'm not getting better, I need to see somebody else. Maybe I need a second opinion, or maybe I need to talk to, my friend who works wherever else and understand better what I'm missing. I think people are now not afraid to play a more active part in their own healthcare journey. And for a while we were like passive, like we were like, passengers in the Uber. Someone else was driving, right? And now it's like, you know what? Like, we're gonna drive our own way and we're gonna figure out our own journey. And it's not easy. I mean, healthcare is a complicated web of information and, progress that, like, I mean, you look at health tech, things are changing every day. You have to factor in things like risk factors from genetics and environment. Like, none of it is easy, but at the same time, it's like, you know your body best. So if you're not going to advocate for yourself and how you're feeling, then why would anybody else have incentive to do that, right?
Hey, humans, we are such complicated beings.
That's great.
We are not produced at a factory. We all are very, very different being and complex system within us. So yeah, it is not an easy journey to take care of ourselves, and nobody
No.
knows all the answers, and yeah.
No, for sure. And I think, a lot of times what I also find is people can tend to make health very complicated. And many of the experts that I've heard from and, the readings that I've kind of engaged in, a lot of them are going back to the basics. Like it's, things we know, but hopefully can practice, right? Things like sleep, movement, nutrition, stress. I mean,
Why is it so hard?
it is hard. It's hard to balance all of it. I
Yes, it is
agree.
basic, but it is so hard to
Yeah,
practice.
100%. And I think that's where most of the impact is left to be unlocked, right? Because of course the fancy tests and the $500 supplement regime, like great, it'll get you to like from 95 to 97%. But getting to the 95%, I mean, that's the hard part, right? Like the habits that we have created for ourselves, like a lot of the unlearning that we have to do. Oh my gosh, like I grew up like eating frozen food in Kuwait, and that was supposed to be nutritious, Burgers and fries and Happy Meals was part of my life. And now I'm like, it's okay if I go maybe once in a blue moon, but otherwise it's like, well, let's learn to cook our own food. Like that's important, But nobody taught us that, right? Like it was almost like a mark of like doing well in life if you ate out and if your kids went to McDonald's and that was a good thing. Well, now we know better. That's all.
Time flies, right? We'll need to wrap up
Yes. Oh
to
my gosh,
respect
what a
your
great chat.
time. Yes. What's next for you, Afta?
Ooh, what's next? I mean, I really feel like I am so behind on AI. So, what's next is I want to tap into the brain power of folks like yourself and other amazing people in my life that are very ahead of kind of where I am. So, I'm really curious about how AI can impact healthcare and the experience of health for a lot of our folks in Canada specifically, because I feel like we're a hub of tech innovation. I mean, AI came from Canada, so why are we lagging behind is a question I ask myself often. And I think from a personal perspective, I'm taking life more organically than I have in the past couple of years. Like this year has been very interesting in the sense that if I wanted something, it's gone the opposite way. But I'm okay with it. And I'm surprised by my own reaction. And I'm like, oh, like that didn't bug you? And it's okay. Like that's fine if that's how it's supposed to be. And of course, I mean, it doesn't mean inaction. I'm still, acting and getting stuff done. But I'm not as stressed about it as I was last couple of years. So hopefully that translates to some good health metrics because I'm also tracking data now. I have my Aura ring.
Yes.
And that's what's next is looking at the data and putting it together with like really cool habits and seeing where we go.
Thank you so much once again for the
Thank you.
time and the
Oh,
chat.
thank you. I appreciate it. And I can't wait for this to launch. I can't wait to hear all the other stories from all the other amazing guests. You are absolutely such a great listener. I've always said that to you. You let organic conversations flow so beautifully. So I appreciate that and I thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And next week, no, the week after we meet. We're doing.
Next week,
Is
next
it next
Tuesday.
week?
Yeah. Time does fly.
Really, really looking forward to having another dinner with you.
Likewise.
And we'll chat about AI for sure.
Yes, let's do that.
That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please remember you have more agency than you often realize. Choose your stories. I'll see you next time.